Come, sit beside me, dear friend. Let me tell you a story that my grandmother told me and her grandmother told her, a tale that has been whispered through generations, carrying within it a truth that might just change your heart. There was once a valley, long forgotten by time, where songs had power beyond imagination. And in this valley lived a robin whose voice was so beautiful that people would journey for days just to hear her sing. Her name was Melody. Now, Melody was not just any robin. Her voice could make the flowers bloom out of season, could bring tears to the eyes of the coldest hearts, could even, some say, heal the sick. But you see, dear listener, Melody had grown proud of her gift. She would perch high on the tallest oak tree each morning, demanding that everyone gather to hear her. She would sing only for those who brought her the finest seeds, the most precious gifts. And she would turn away anyone who came with empty hands. "Listen to me," she would call out, her chest puffed with pride. "I am the greatest singer who has ever lived." The old trees would whisper among themselves, shaking their ancient heads. For they knew what Melody had forgotten, that gifts are meant to be shared, not hoarded. One fateful evening, as storm clouds gathered like angry spirits, an old hermit approached Melody's tree. He was bent with age, his clothes were worn, and his hands, they were empty. "Please," he said quietly, "would you sing for me? I am dying, and your voice, they say it can bring peace to troubled souls." Melody looked down at him with disdain. "Where are your gifts, old man? Where are your offerings? I do not sing for beggars." The hermit's eyes filled with tears, but he simply nodded and walked away into the approaching storm. That night, the storm that came was unlike any the valley had ever seen. It was as if the very heavens were angry. The wind howled with voices of the past, the rain fell like tears of the forgotten, and the lightning split the world in two. When morning came, Melody awakened to find her world shattered, her family gone, her beautiful nest destroyed, and her voice, her precious, powerful voice, had vanished completely. She tried to sing, opening her beak wide, but only silence emerged. The gift she had guarded so jealously, had valued above all else, was gone. Among the wreckage of her life, she found something curious. A small bronze bell cracked right down the middle. When she nudged it with her beak, it made no sound. Like her, it was broken. Like her, it seemed worthless now. Days passed in terrible silence. Melody wandered deeper into the valley, to places where even the streams had forgotten how to babble. And there, in a cave carved from living stone, she found the old hermit. But now she saw him differently. His worn clothes were actually the robes of a sage. His humble cave was filled with medicines and herbs. And carved into the stone walls were thousands upon thousands of names. The names of all the souls he had helped, all the hearts he had healed. "You," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "You are the silent sage." The old man looked up. From grinding herbs, his eyes kind but infinitely sad. "I am," he said simply. "And you are the robin who forgot how to sing." Melody's heart cracked a little more. I was cruel to you. I turned you away when you needed help." The sage continued his work, speaking softly as he measured out healing powders. "Do you know why I needed your song that night, little robin?" She shook her head. "Because," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries, "I too was once a singer. The greatest singer who ever lived, they said. My voice was so powerful it could move mountains, so beautiful it could make angels weep." He paused, his hands stilling. "But like you, I became proud. I sang only for kings and queens, only for those who could pay the highest price. I forgot that my gift was meant to heal, not to elevate myself. Melody listened, her heart breaking and mending all at once. One day, the sage continued, a small sparrow came to me, just as I came to you. She was dying, and she begged me to sing for her, but I turned her away because she had nothing to offer me. His voice cracked with ancient pain. That sparrow died alone in silence, while I slept in my palace of pride. And in that moment, the universe taught me a lesson I will never forget. My voice disappeared, just like yours. But how? Melody whispered. How did you find peace? The Tao. Sage smiled, and for the first time his eyes held light instead of sorrow. I learned to listen instead of demanding to be heard. I learned to heal instead of seeking to be healed. I learned to serve instead of expecting to be served. The next morning, Melody heard something that changed her forever. A tiny cry, barely audible, coming from beneath a fallen log. She investigated and found a baby sparrow, orphaned by the storm, weak and dying. For the first time in her life, Melody forgot about herself completely. She didn't think about her lost voice, her broken pride, her shattered life. She thought only of this tiny creature's pain. She opened her beak, wanting, desperately to comfort the little one, and a sound emerged. Not the beautiful song she once knew, but a broken, imperfect note, filled with love. The baby sparrow stopped crying and looked up at her with eyes full of trust. The cracked bell beside her began to hum, its broken song somehow more beautiful than any perfect melody she had ever heard. How? She breathed. The silent sage appeared beside her, tears streaming down his weathered face. Because, my dear listener, for the first time in your life, you sang for someone else. From that day forward, Melody dedicated every breath to healing others. She tended to wounded foxes, comforted lost butterflies, sang lullabies to orphaned squirrels. With each act of selfless love, her voice grew stronger. Not as it was before, but deeper, richer, more beautiful for having been broken and remade by compassion. The cracked bell became her constant companion, its imperfect song joining. Her own broken, beautiful voice in harmonies that could mend hearts and heal souls. Years passed like pages in a sacred book. Travelers came from distant lands, not seeking entertainment, but seeking healing. They brought their broken children, their wounded hearts, their shattered dreams, and Melody sang for them all. Not the songs of pride she once knew, but lullabies of hope, hymns of healing, melodies that whispered, "You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are deeply, profoundly loved." One spring morning, a young robin arrived at the valley. Her voice was pure and powerful, her manner proud and demanding. "I have heard of you," she said to Melody. "They say you know the secret of great singing. Teach me to be famous." Melody smiled, seeing herself from so long ago. She gestured to the cracked bell, its bronze surface now gleaming with the patina of wisdom. "Dear child," she said gently, "I cannot teach you to be famous, but I can teach you something far more precious. I can teach you to be remembered." She began to sing then, not a song of performance, but of service, not for applause, but for love. The young robin's eyes filled with tears as she heard something she had never imagined, a song that made her feel not small and insignificant, but precious and valued. "The most beautiful music we can make," Melody said, her voice like honey and wisdom combined, "is not the song that makes us great, but the song that makes others feel that they are." The young robin's heart cracked open, just as Melody's had years before, and in that moment the cracked bell sang its sweetest note. a sound that echoed across the valley, across time itself, carrying a message that would outlive them all. We are never more powerful than when we use our gifts not to lift ourselves, but to lift each other. And so ends our tale, dear friend. But perhaps it is not really an ending at all, but a beginning. For somewhere in your own heart, there might be a song waiting to be sung. Not for fame or glory, but for love. If this story has touched something deep within your soul, I ask you to share it with someone who needs to remember that broken things can still make the most beautiful music. And stay with me, for there are more ancient tales waiting to be told, more wisdom to be shared beside this eternal fire of storytelling. So subscribe the channel, like the video, or comment your views.